Hi everybody, I'm Peter Skiera, aka Stations Guy. If you can recognize me, I've got my fashionable 80s stubble, I've got my rock hair, I've got my sweatbands and headband, and my MTV shirt. Because today we're going to be talking about a legendary boombox from the 80s. And since you typically take boomboxes outside, we are outside today. Besides that, it's a glorious day. It's sunny and warm and wonderful. So why not? Let's have a little change of venue. My guest on today's show is the Clairtone 7980 boombox, otherwise known as the Conion C-100F. Legendary classic 80s boombox, big, flashy, loud. This is the original Clairtone 7980 user manual, which is quite rare. Most people don't save manuals to begin with, but for a portable product, it's especially hard to find. And it's got great information and illustrations, and I actually think this looks a bit classier than its counterpart, the Conion user manual, which seemed really kind of pedestrian. I also have an original schematic. I love, as much original stuff I can get with something, a vintage thing. It's great. I also even have original sales receipts, although not to this particular Conion that I own. Or Clairtone that I own. This went to another Clairtone. But I keep saying Conion and Clairtone. They're essentially the same thing. They're identical in every way. Features, specifications, except for the branding. In the United States, this model was distributed under the Conion name. It's also known sometimes as Conion Onkyo, no relation to the audio company Onkyo. In Canada, it was distributed under the Clairtone name. Other than that, they were the same. So this receipt is for a Clairtone 7980 that was purchased in Quebec at Atlantic Video and Sound Center Stores Limited. And the owner, the purchaser, paid a whopping $543.78 Canadian, which I think is around $380 today. I'm not sure what it would have been back then, but regardless, that's a lot. That was a lot of money back then. It's a lot of money now for a boombox. And it was purchased on January 21st of 1985. And since this model, excuse me, my fake hair in my mouth, was made from the early 1980s to the mid-1980s, it probably didn't continue on for much longer than after this one was purchased, maybe another year or so. And the other interesting thing about this particular purchaser, according to an email I received, the owner was a member of a rock group, a Canadian rock group called Zigzag. And he took the boombox out of the box, set it on a shelf, and pretty much left it there. So that's being sold separately for tons of money. The Clairtone I purchased on eBay, in the end for a bargain basement price, because it was fairly beat up, had a lot of things wrong with it. Once I received it, there was shipping damage, so the seller took off a little more because of the shipping damage. So I got it at a pretty decent price, brought it to a local electronics repair shop that specializes in vintage audio, had them repair most of the things that were wrong with it. Very difficult to find a repair shop that will deal with vintage audio, and even more difficult to find one that will deal with vintage portable audio. A lot of them, most of them, will not touch a vintage portable product with a 10-foot pole. I guess between the difficulty working on it and finding parts and what have you, they won't even look at it. So I was very fortunate to find this place about an hour and 10 minutes away. Did a pretty good job for the most part. Like I said, it had issues, so I was able to get a decent price for it. Even those that don't work or are being sold for parts or repair, they're not cheap. They're like, $550, $600. If you want one that's in mostly working condition or fully working condition and reasonably good shape, you'll pay, you know, $2,000, $3,000. It's not unheard of. So quite an investment for this model boombox. But really, if you're looking, if you're a collector or you just want to get a boombox that just, you know, manifests the 1980s flair and theme, I think the Clairtone 7980 or / the Conion C-100F is the one to get. It's not the best sounding for sure. I think one of the best sounding, if not the best sounding boomboxes is the JC RCM90, which I also have. Very, very good sounding, excellent sounding. This boombox, this Clairtone, it plays loud, and it's got, you know, some chops to it, but it's not going to blow you away as far as sound quality goes. So I guess what I'll do is put it up on the table here. It's going to take up like almost all of the room in the camera view field here, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to demonstrate this with me in the picture as well. Not that you want to see my lovely mug, but let's get it up here and I can go through some of the features and some other things. It's very big, as I said. It's around 30 inches wide, 16 inches tall, and 8 inches deep. And it's around, give or take, 26 pounds. It's big, it's heavy, just like a vintage boombox should be. So let me grab it. Yowza. Let's see, maybe if I pull this back a bit, you'll be able to see the whole thing a bit better. There we go. So this is it, the Clairtone 7980 boombox. So let me spin around here, and I will point out some of the innovative features this boombox has. So you've got two VU meters right here, which also one doubles as the battery meter and the other as a tuning meter, if you're in the tuning mode or if you're in battery mode. This is what we call a three-way. So it has a tweeter, a mid-range, and an 8-inch woofer. So it's got dedicated drivers for each range of frequencies, unlike many boomboxes, which are usually two-way, a tweeter and a woofer, or maybe even a one-way, just one large full-range driver that reproduces all of the frequencies. So that's unique. It has AM, FM, and a short wave band. You've got these very cool light meters here that kind of act like a VU meter, but they use lights. The problem is you really got to crank it up to get some light movement. You've got your tape selection for metal or chrome or normal. You've got a loudness switch, which boosts the bass and the mid-range. The bass by, let's see, I think it's 6 dB by the bass and 4 dB by the mid-range. You've got mono, stereo, and wide. So the wide mode takes one of the channels and kind of adds some, what would you call it, reverb or a slight delay to give you a more of an expanded sound stage. It also increases the noise level, though. You've got your selector switch for AM, FM, or shortwave 1 or 2. This is your analog tuning knob here. There's a light over here. You probably can't see it, but there's a little light here that semi-lights up the tuning dial. You've got tape 1 and 2, radio, and then phono/aux. So you can flip a switch in the back if you're going to be hooking up a turntable, which might be a little bit weird with a boombox, but, you know, maybe. Your volume knob, your balance, your treble, your bass. The bass and treble cut by 8 dB or boost by 8 dB. You got your recording level. This shows the tape path. You got a tape counter. The other unique thing is you've got 2 tape decks, which is not so much unique with a boombox, but with this, you've got one that you put the tape in horizontally and one vertically like a regular tape deck. And I suspect they did this to save some space so it wouldn't be even bigger than it already is. If you can imagine one of these stacked on top of the other, or two of these side by side, this boombox would be quite a bit. I hate when that happens. This boombox would be quite a bit bigger if they had two of these, so I think that's why they did it. You have soft touch logic controls here. You've got a headphone input. I think this is all right, that says monitor. Your power button, then you've got an alarm, which I'll attempt to demonstrate a little later. It uses this infrared sensor to track a movement, and as you move around or get closer, it sends off this loud alarm, which kind of is interesting because it just says here sensor on and off, so somebody could just come along and switch it off and then take the boombox. Some of the things that were wrong with this when I bought it: this light was burnt out. This tape deck didn't sound very good, and it was at a lower output level than this tape deck and everything else. This tray was completely missing, and there are a few other things that needed to be fixed. Oh, these lights which show the tape path. This tape deck is auto reverse, so this shows the tape direction. These lights were out. So I had, this light works, this one still doesn't for some reason, so that's fixed. The technician replaced the playback head on here and then calibrated it to factory specs. And like I said, did a few other things. So for the most part, it's pretty much fully working. I've got it plugged in with a power cord, but it does take 8 D-cell batteries, which probably is why it contributes to the 26 pounds. This tray, like I said, was missing, and you see that a lot on units on eBay because it's on the bottom, so it gets a lot of abuse and probably at some point breaks off because it's just plastic. It's spring-loaded, so you can do that. It pops out, and you can fit in 3 individual cassettes, not in their plastic cases, just the cassettes only, like so. And I like that. I like that they give you some storage, because back in the day, cassettes were big. You don't want to have to carry around a case or have cassettes hanging out of your pockets. So to be able to pop in 3 is pretty cool. This wasn't the only boombox that had storage for cassettes. There were at least 2 others that I can think of. They were all in the back. One was like a push button that would pop out individual trays, and another was 2 big cases with a cover that you would take the cover off and just store the cassettes in there. But as I say, oftentimes this is missing, or maybe it's there, but this trim piece is missing. And so I found one on eBay, an original. They do sell 3D printed parts for this and other parts for this model. But I wanted the original, wanted to keep it as original as possible. The 3D printed part isn't the same color. It's darker. It has kind of a rough finish, and it doesn't have the original trim piece. So I found this, bought it. The seller also had the original spring and plastic piece above the spring, which were also missing on this. The problem for me was, though, it was very difficult to assemble, much more difficult than I thought. It's got a couple of pegs on either side that fit into rails, plastic rails, which is what it slides on. And I thought I could just, stick one end in and then pop the other end in. The problem is when you put one end in, the 2 pegs on the other end won't fit in. They stick out too much. And if you try and force it in, you might break the plastic pegs, and then you're screwed. It just isn't going to work at all. So really what you have to do is take out one of the rails. Each rail is screwed in individually. So you got to take out one of the rails, put the 2 pegs in this rail, and then stick the rail in against the pegs on this side, assemble it, and then reassemble, re-screw in the rail. The difficulty is there's not a lot of space inside here. There's a PCB right above this. And so to get at the screws is difficult. The screw that's towards the back, that's easier. The screws that are towards the front here, are much more difficult to get at. There's very little space. So I ended up getting a small screwdriver with the head at a sort of, 90-degree angle kind of thing. I was able to get it in there, get it on the screw head, but then, trying to get it to unscrew was really difficult. There wasn't a lot of pressure on the screw head. I had to kind of angle the screwdriver up as much as I could and try and put as much force down as I could, and there's not a lot of room to move the screwdriver, so it was really involved and difficult, but I was able to get one of the rails off, assemble it, put it back in place, screw the rails back in, and now I've got a fully functional and original cassette storage tray. And of course I had to put in the spring and the plastic piece that holds the spring in place. If you just assemble this and you don't have the spring, it's not going to work. I think I've got a picture of the spring with this in the out position and the spring with this in the in position. The spring has to be positioned a certain way. Let me just, I don't know if I can swing this around and show you the back, how well that's going to work. We'll see. But here there's connections for an external FM antenna right here. There are built-in aerials, and it's very cool that these are fully intact. They're not bent, they're not broken off, they're not missing the top knob things. So that's fantastic because you see that a lot. Here's the inside of the battery case, and you'll see the terminals and everything in here look beautiful, look absolutely beautiful. Still the original foam on the battery cover, which is great. So here you've got connections for an external microphone. You've got a ground wire if you are going to be hooking up a turntable. You can switch, as I said, this input between auxiliary or phono, moving magnet phono. You can hook up some external speakers here if you want. And then this, it says beat cancel 1, 2, 3. I believe, if I've read correctly, what this is about is if you're going to record from the AM tuner, you could get a lot of noise, and so this will compensate for that depending on what setting you put it on. When I received this in the mail, 2 bosses inside, one here, were broken off. So I glued them back in place. This one, I guess, is not quite in the right position because the screw is not in there very well. So the corner of this is partially away from the front, so it's a little bit delicate. So I don't think the seller, either he didn't send it insured or he did, but we didn't want to go through the hassle. If you've ever had to make a claim with UPS, it ain't fun. So he ended up just taking money off, and I got a little bit of a better deal. Made in Japan, by the way, in case you can't see that. Let me flip this around once again. Truth be told, this is not the first boombox, the first Clairtone or Conion. I bought a Conion many years before this on eBay. Had a really bad experience. Again, it was a bargain basement price because it was really beat up. It had some problems. I don't have $2,000 or $3,000 disposable income to buy one that's fully refurbed. The seller, unfortunately, was completely clueless when it came to shipping big and heavy items. He basically wrapped it in a single layer of bubble wrap, threw it in a box filled with packing peanuts, a box that was way too big and way too thin cardboard. I got it in. The back panel was cracked. The side panel was cracked. They wouldn't stay together, assembled together. There were other issues, things that weren't working correctly that he said were working. And thankfully, I was able to get him to take it back, give me a full refund, and pay for the return shipping. So it was a very expensive lesson for that seller. I would just encourage you, if you do end up buying one of these, and you can't do local pickup, it's got to be shipped, make sure the seller knows to pack it well. It's very big, it's very heavy. I know this is about the 10th time I've said that. Go to UPS, have him pay the extra to have it professionally packed if he doesn't know how to do it, because otherwise you're going to get this thing probably broken. And then, as I say, trying to go through insurance, it's just a pain in the neck for both parties. And it's the seller who's controlling all of that. Even though you're the buyer and you're the one who received it damaged, UPS really doesn't care about you. Maybe they want some pictures from you in a statement, but otherwise they're dealing with the seller, and they pay the seller. They don't pay you, even though you've got the damaged product, so you then have to turn around and get the money from the seller. So it's a crazy process. Bottom line is, try and get your seller to pack it very well. Okay, so I can't play the tuner for you because it'll be copyrighted music, and I'll be jumped on and arrested. But what I'm going to try and do is play from the cassette player number 1 if I can. And by the way, again, I don't know how well you can see this as an original sticker on here that says One Key Touch Recording System. This also has music MSSI, Music Start Search Installation, so you can search for tracks on a cassette. But again, since I can't play copyrighted music on a cassette, I'm going to play from my lovely mixtape here, which is, this is a digital storage device, music storage, in the form of a cassette, and you can play it like a cassette, or you can hook earbuds up to it or something. So I'm going to turn this on. I think I'm going to turn it on. I did charge it beforehand. Okay, there we go. So there's the menu. It's a touchscreen, color touchscreen menu. And I've put some songs on here from YouTube's copyright-free, royalty-free music. And let's see. So let's try this one. So it's playing. And now I'll turn around and put the tape in there that moves out very slowly. Slide it down in there. Hopefully this works. We're going to find out. Play. You can see here the LEDs, although, like I say, you really got to crank it to get the LEDs to move. You can see that the tape path, or maybe you can't. I don't know how well it's picking it up, but this is showing a rotation. The tape counter is moving. I've got this on, loudness is on, and it's on stereo, not wide. So now I'm going to put it on. I'm going to go from stereo, flip it to wide, and maybe you'll hear a difference. I don't know. I've also got the bass kind of cranked like 3/4 of the way and backed off a little bit on the treble. Okay, so that gives you some idea of I guess, the sound. It's tough to do a decent sound demo on YouTube. I guess now I'm going to attempt to demo the alarm. I find that it's kind of hit or miss, so we'll see what happens here. I'll turn it on. Yeah, I guess it's not happy. We can maybe try it again later. I'll see if it works. It did work. I've heard it, so I know it works. It's just kind of sensitive in terms of getting it correct. There was a limited edition gold version of this, so instead of it being silver, it was a gold color. I think that looks kind of weird. I mean, most boomboxes are silver, maybe black, not usually gold colored. But it was limited, so I guess it's more valuable or more desirable, perhaps. Also, there was a cheaper version of this made in Korea. This, as I said, in the Conion was made in Japan, but Korea did a version which it didn't have the VU meters, it didn't have the music search, it didn't have the light, and there were other things it didn't have. So I guess it was just a less expensive version for people who didn't want to spend almost $500 US on this kind of thing, which is what this was back in the early to mid 80s. It retailed for around $450 to $475, which that's, like I said, there's a big hunk of change. Power-wise, the average RMS is about 30 watts, which is still very, very loud. And like I say, to me, this is just so iconic. It just manifests everything about the 1980s. It's, like I said, I don't mean to be repetitive, but this is the one to own if you're looking for a boombox that just screams 1980s. I know some people also call it a ghetto blaster. I don't really like that name, so I prefer boombox, but whatever. And I have a few other models. Not sure I would consider myself a collector, more like a hobbyist, but I have a few other boombox models which at some point will appear on my program. But I wanted to at least start with this because I just think it is the one to start with. Let me just try one more time to see if I can get the alarm to work. So it is on, and the sensor is on. Well, alrighty then, I guess it works. So you heard it, it's quite loud, quite annoying. I mean, you're certainly going to hear if someone is trying to walk away with your boombox. All right, dudes, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you tuning in. Subscribe if you would, please. Leave me some positive comments if you would. This is the kind of thing I do. If you're into vintage records, vintage audio equipment, check out my other videos. I think you'll enjoy it as much as this one. Hopefully you did enjoy it. But please be kind to each other. Tune in again. I'll have another video hopefully in a couple of weeks. New video. So thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you next time right here.